Sairam, Sitaram, Assalam alaikum, and a pleasant good evening to one and all. I am Krishna Ramuta, President of Sri Satya Sai Global Council of Trinidad and Tobago, and this is the series Awake, Unite, and Inspire. I take this opportunity to welcome each and every one of you. Sairam. Right. Oh. Tonight, we are fortunate and blessed to have Brother Fize Mohammed as the guest on tonight's program. Brother Fize, first question to you. How did you first come in contact with Satya Sai Baba?
Thank you very much, Brother Krishna. First of all, I offer my most loving and humble pranams at the divine lotus feet of my dear and beloved Mother Sai, Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba, embodiments of the divine Atma, embodiments of divine love, loving Sai Ram. So, Brother Krish, how did I first come into contact with Sri Satya Sai Baba? Well, I was born in a Muslim home in the southern part of Trinidad and Tobago. My family had a lot of challenges growing up. But at the tender age of 16, I started searching for God. The questions that preoccupied my mind at that time were, who am I? Why have I been put on the face of the earth? And what is my purpose? When many young adults my age were interested in fast cars and movies and clothes, I was more interested in finding out my purpose. So I started reading books on the power of positive thinking by Norman Vincent Peale and books by Harold Sherman. But after a while, I realized that they only dealt with the mind. They dabbled only with the mind and nothing beyond the mind. So after a while, I lost interest. And then I was guided to read the spiritual, deeper stuff. I started studying and reading the teachings and the life of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa, Paramahansa Yogananda, Ramana Maharishi, and even the Sufi mystics of Islam, Jalaluddin Rumi and Imam Ghazali. And I remember at a very tender age when I read one line in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, the devotion, the bhakti was so inspiring that it would send you into a different world. And there I began to feel a deep connection with spirituality and myself. I felt a lot of comfort and joy in reading the glories, the mission, the devotion of these saints and their teachings. At that time, where I lived, I built a small room at the back of the house in order to have privacy and the time to read and study these great saints and sages, and also the time to practice my meditation. And so at that age, 16 going on 17, I started reading and studying the saints and practicing daily meditation. After having completed secondary school at the age of 17 and not knowing what I wanted to do with my life, I started visiting the mosque in my village. And often I would go and do the namaz or prayers and sit there and read the Holy Quran and contemplate on life and the teachings of the Quran. And then one day I meet a very good Muslim brother, 15 years my senior, who was the Imam's son that lived next to the mosque. He and I struck up a divine conversation, and from that day on, we became very, very close because he was also a searcher for truth, even though he came from an Islamic background. So, a couple years after and during, we used to have long conversations on God, spirituality, purpose, the soul, reincarnation. And it was such a joy to meet somebody who was so wise. He was like a mentor to me. And then one fine day, he brings a book and he hands it to me. When I look on the cover of the book, I see this bushy hair, African looking guy. And I said, "Who is this?" And very emphatically, my brother, Muslim brother, told me. He says, "Fize, this is God in human form." And then I blurted out, I said, "You must be mad. How can you call him God? He's a mere mortal." Against the background that in Islam, the fundamental belief and teaching is that God is formless. He looked at me very seriously and he said, "Fize, read this book with an open mind." And so I took Satyam Shivam Sundaram home. And from the very moment I read the first page, I was immediately attracted to its contents. And I read the entire book in one sitting. However, as I was reading, I noticed that what my brother and I had been discussing for over 2 years about God and spirituality and the universality of teachings, we found the same teachings in Satya Sai Baba through that wonderful book, Satyam Shivam Sundaram. But amidst the divine attraction of the book, there arose in me a great conflict that was very difficult and challenging to reconcile. When I read Sai Baba saying, "I am God, but you are God also. The only difference is I know that I am God, whereas you do not," I could not reconcile those two statements with the fundamental belief in Islam that God is formless. And so what I did, I came back to my brother Khalid and we continued to have discussions. But this confusion, this conflict grew very, very deep. It disturbed me for weeks and months, even though I was divinely attracted to the teachings of Sai Baba. I sought out one or two Muslim brothers who were believers in Sai Baba and sat with them and questioned them as to how they were able to reconcile the form with the formless. And after discussion and reading, I became even more confused. So one day I decided to go back to the mosque and prayed to Almighty Allah, the only true God that I knew, to show me who this Sai Baba really is. And I was guided back into the teachings of the Holy Quran. Allah says in the Holy Quran, Allah is closer to you than your jugular vein. So that means He is within. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, upon whom be peace, once said, "He who knows himself knows God." So God is within. And then when I looked at the declaration of faith in Islam, one of the cardinal principles, it says, "La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah." The orthodox translation of that verse is that there is no God but Allah, and the Holy Prophet Muhammad is his messenger. But the Sufis, the mystical men of Islam, interprets the same verse, not that there is no God but Allah, but that there is nothing but Allah. And so my doubts started to become less and less. And then having visited a few Sai Baba centers, attended the bhajans that were so beautiful, read almost everything that was presented to me, and had much discussions, I decided to go to India to see for myself who this Sai Baba is. And it so happened in 1981, Satya Sai Baba had sent out a loving invitation to all overseas Balvikas Gurus for a Guru training program around Guru Purnima 1981. And so I joined that group, and on Guru Purnima 1981, we arrived in Puttaparthi on the morning of Guru Purnima. As we arrived in the taxis just behind the Purnachandra Hall, we were ushered out quickly and into the Purnachandra Hall, where there was a sea of people, thousands. The entire place was packed, and we were ushered to sit way at the back. And after a while, a few minutes, I see the curtains part, and this 5-foot form dressed in an orange gown literally float across the stage. And something triggered inside of me. And I knew that this was not somebody ordinary and human. And for the next 30 days, with every passing day, Sai Baba presided over that overseas Guru training program. And sometimes he would give messages, he would talk to us, and in the darshan line I would see him wave his hand and materialize the vibhuti, take letters, have discussions. And little by little, with every passing day, my doubts were becoming less and less. And then I heard that he had built a mosque for the Muslims in Puttaparthi. And this really, my curiosity was really piqued. And when I inquired, in 1977, the Muslims had to trek many, many miles in the blistering heat. And during the holy month of Ramadan, this could be as much as 5 times daily. And Sai Baba, out of his love and compassion, constructed a mosque for the Muslims. And I had the privilege of entering the mosque and doing namaz or prayers. So this is how I came initially to know about who Satya Sai Baba is, and to lay my eyes on him in Guru Purnima, July 1981. Sai Ram.
Thank you very much, Brother Fize. That was so wonderful. And the gentleman you referred to, Brother Khalid, yes, I happen to know him. What a truly wonderful gentleman he was. My next question for you now, kindly share some of your most memorable experiences with Mother Sai. Sai Ram.
Thank you, Brother Krishna, for that question. In 1983, having come back from Puttaparthi in 1981, many devotees were very intrigued as to how a Muslim could believe in Sri Satya Sai Baba. Coming from a belief system that God is formless to believing in God with a form. So I was requested to do many talks when I came back. But there was one particular bhajan session in 1983. And as you know, in Trinidad and Tobago, there's a public holiday called Labor Day on the 19th of June. And because it was a public holiday, we did a bhajan session at a devotee's home in the southern part of Trinidad on the day before the holiday. And as it was a holiday, the next day we sang bhajans throughout the night. It was so blissful and beautiful. And I was transporting 3 devotees in my vehicle back to their homes. And as we were traveling on the road, another vehicle coming in the opposite direction at a tremendously fast speed crashed into mine. The impact was so great that the front of my vehicle almost reached the windscreen. The steering came and hit me in my chest, and I began to cough up blood. The windscreen was shattered, and splinters went into my face and chest, and there was profuse bleeding. So much so that I passed out. I lost consciousness. When I awoke, I was in the hospital, and I awoke only 2 days after regaining consciousness. And I was hearing devotees, especially the older devotees, pouring tulsi water into my mouth and saying that Brother Fize is not going to live, and they were chanting mantras. But the most amazing thing was that I felt absolutely no pain. And after a few days, I was discharged from the hospital and sent home. And through my mother's loving and tender care, I got better. When I saw the vehicle thereafter, people were making comments that because of the nature of the accident, how bad and damaged the vehicle was, they could not believe that anyone could be alive, especially the driver, because of the impact. That was June 1983. In October 1983, a group of Trinidadian devotees visited Prashanti Nilayam, and I get my first interview with my beloved, loving Lord Sai. And when Sai Baba ushered us into the interview room, I ran quickly and sat very close to his feet. And in the customary, loving, respectful way, as the perfect host, he would put on the fan and the lights, materialize vibhuti and give to the devotees. And then he sat on his chair and he looked straight into my eyes, and the very first sentence I heard from this avatar, my loving Lord, in the physical, he says, so much love, he said it with, it was I who saved you from that accident. And then he did his hand like this. He said, you drive too fast. Start early, drive slowly, reach safely. And then all of a sudden I see his hand begin to wave in this customary motion. And I see, because I was looking up, sitting at his feet, I actually see coming out of the middle of his hand a silver pendant which he held. And I bent my head thinking that he was giving to the person at the back of me. And he said, no, 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 you. So when I put my hands out, he drops the silver pendant into my hand, takes a group of devotees into the inner interview room. The other devotees in the group were anxious. They were enthused to see the pendant, so they said, Brother Fize, please show us. And as I began to do this, within a minute or two, Sai Baba comes back out from the inner interview room and he hits me on my shoulder and he said, no exhibition. And then there was an elderly gentleman in the interview. I was just 23 years old at that time. And he asked, he says, Baba, don't you think we should get Brother Fize married? And that was the furthest thing from my mind. Because here at the tender age of 16, I was searching for God. I had gone through and studied all the masters. But when I came into contact with Sri Satya Sai Baba, this is where I found my guru, my master, my God, my guide, my mother, my father. So my preoccupation was just to follow him, to practice his teachings, and to feel this love that he speaks about. So I jumped up in the interview room and I said, Swami, the only way I will get married is if you choose the girl. And then he said, Nahi, 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 let parents decide and I will bless. So, Brother Krishna, that was one of my most memorable experiences with Sri Satya Sai Baba. That very first interview, and with so much love and compassion, when he told me, it was I who saved you from that accident. So I know now today, had it not been for his divine intervention and grace, I would not be alive today. And so the second experience that was very heartwarming and comforting was that when I came back from the first trip to India, public speaking I was never accustomed to. I was so shy and introverted growing up. To get Brother Fize to say something in public was the most difficult thing. And so when I came back from that first trip and devotees and centers were calling for me to share this experience, I used to write down what I had to say. And when I reached the podium, my whole body would tremble out of fear of public speaking. I would be sweating profusely and used to get bad migraine headaches. And in another interview that I had with Sai Baba later on, he said, you must have more confidence in yourself. And so I started to practice that with some success, but still the fear of public speaking still used to grip me every time I stood in front of a group of people. But a calamity sometimes becomes a blessing. And in one of the talks that I had given at a particular center for Navaratri, I had a very good Sai brother who was present. And the next morning after that talk, he calls me at around 7:30 in the morning and started to make very insulting remarks about the talk. He said, Fize, I am not happy with the way you speak. Why do you speak off the cuff? Why don't you read and quote Baba's messages? And this evangelical way of speaking does not appeal to him. Because he and I were very close, I felt very hurt and pained that he would make comments like these. And so it remained with me until my next trip to Puttaparthi, where another group of Trinidadians were there. We got a group interview. And then during that interview, I said, Swami, may I speak with you privately? And then he said, Acha, go, lovingly. He guided and ushered me into the inner interview room. And Brother Krish, with so much love of 1,000 mothers, with so much compassion, the very first thing that he does is that he takes these two fingers, he reaches out and he pinches me lovingly on my cheek. I could still feel that sensation. And he said, you must speak on Sai experience and the morality. And then I said, Swami, but there are some people who do not approve of the way I speak. Then he takes his index finger and he pierces, pushes it straight to where my heart is. And I really felt the weight of his finger. And then his hands went up into the air like this in an arc. And he said, you go and speak, and I will be there inside you. And from then on, I said, I will only follow what my beloved Lord says. And a most amazing thing happened thereafter. With every talk that, through His grace, that I was able to give, when I stand just before, I would pray inwardly, Swami, make me thy instrument. Speak through me, love through me, talk through me, hear through me. And a most amazing thing happened. all the fear of public speaking disappeared. And it was a most amazing miracle of what happened. And through His divine grace, He has organized that I give talks throughout the different parts of the world. So that is another memorable experience that I had with Sri Satya Sai Baba, where public speaking is concerned. And finally, Brother Krishna, remember in that first interview, my friend who I consider to be as a father figure had asked Swami about my marriage. And Swami had said, let parents decide and I will bless. Well, that was 1983. It took 8 years in 1991 for my parents to decide on one girl. But marriage is serious business. And I wanted to make sure this is what Sai Baba wants for me rather than I want out of my egotistic self or desire. So when my mother selected this girl, I wrote a letter to Sai Baba, put a picture of the girl, and I journeyed back to India. Sri Satya Sai Baba was at Whitefield. I spent 2 weeks there, and every day I tried to hand Swami this letter. He refused to take it. It was like ignoring me for those 2 weeks. Until the last darshan, I asked the Sevadal for permission to sit in front as I was leaving that morning. And I challenged Satya Sai Baba. I put the letter in my hand, protruding a little bit from my fingers. And I said, Baba, if you take this letter from me today, I know you would have approved of the contents. And if you don't, I am on my royal and ancient highway to self-realization. And I sat in front, and Sai Baba begins to walk now from his quarters to the darshan line. When he was about 15 feet away from me, he stops. He turns around and he begins to go back to the mandir. And I start to smile to myself, began to put away the letter that this was not going to happen. And lo and behold, to my utter shock and amazement, Sai Baba stops, turns around, looks straight into where I was sitting, and in a flash, he was right in front of me. And he reached out with these 2 fingers and he plucked the letter from my hand. I began to cry, fall on his feet. He put his hand on my head and he said, very happy, very happy. And so that was October 1991. When I came back to Trinidad, I got married on the 24th of November 1991, where I invited the whole Sai Baba organization. About 600 to 700 people came. But Sai Baba had said, let parents decide and I will bless. So I remembered that. And I told my wife then that we must go and get the blessings of Sri Satya Sai Baba. And then we had no money. All the money was spent in the wedding, and I was not earning much at that time, neither my wife. So we prayed to Bhagwan to create a way for us to come to get his blessings. And lo and behold, Air India, the airline we would use to travel out of New York and London to India, they had a promotion where in the West Indies, for over the last 3 months, whoever had traveled, they would put their names in a jar. And they had a raffle type promotion. And so when they pulled the name from the jar, Mr. Fize Mohammed's name came out first. And I got a call from Air India in New York. Are you Mr. Fize Mohammed? Yes. You have just won a free trip to India. And then I said, hey, Bhagwan, thank you very much. And so we only had to purchase one more ticket. And off to Prashanti Nilayam we went. We arrived in December 1991. So October to get the blessings, November to get married, December back into Puttaparthi. It was amazing the room that Swami allocated us. It was like a wedding suite. It had a table, plenty pictures, flowers. We were shocked. And then on the 16th of December 1991, Sai Baba grants what I call the wedding interview. But I'll tell you something, Brother Krishna, marriage was very difficult for me to adjust to. First 31 years, it was only about I. Then when you get married, you have to move from I to we. And then when children come is we. So my wife and I used to have a lot of quarrels. And so when we got that interview, the first thing Sai Baba does is this. He takes the wedding rings off of our fingers, put it in his left hand, and then he with his right hand says, I bless, I bless, I bless. And then he looks at me and he said, you, temper. And then he looks at my wife and he said, you, hot. And then he takes these two fingers and he says, up, down, but always together. Then he began to give us a little talk on marriage. And he said, marriage is 23 hours of 55 minutes of pain and 5 minutes of pleasure. First 2 years, wife, nice. Next 2 years, wife is knife. And then in my mind, I am thinking, and Swami, you told me to get married. And then during the course of the conversation, he looked at me and he said, and how many children do you want? So as a father, I jump up and I say, Swami, I want a boy first. He said, why do you want boy? Girls are better. Girls take better care of parents. They have more love, more consideration. He said, boy, everybody is asking, whose son is this, whose son is that? And then I fold my palms and I said, Swami, let it be your will. He said, Acha, I give one boy, one girl. Then lo and behold, 2 girls came. And in the next interview, I said, Swami, the last time you said you give one boy, one girl, now 2 girls have come. And in true Trinidadian style, he says, what can I do? And then he got very serious, looked straight into my eyes, and he said, I give very good children. Very good children. And Brother Krish, as you know, my 2 daughters, they now live and work and reside in Canada. They'll be 28 and 29 this year. They went through the SSC and Balvikas and young adults, and they are really model examples of Swami's teachings. So that was my 3rd memorable experience that I've had with my beloved Mother Sai, and I am extremely grateful for the experience. Sai Ram.
Wow, that was so wonderful, Brother Fize. I mean, you made some statements there. It was really inspiring for me, and I'm sure those who be listening to this program would be moved by your story. Royal and ancient highway to self-realization. I like that. And I mean, Brother Fize, Swami arranged, should I say, a honeymoon suite for you in Prashanti? That was nice. That was really, really nice. Really, really wonderful. I mean, Swami don't leave out anything and forget to attend to the details. So my next question to you, Brother Fize, how has practicing the teachings of Sai Baba impacted and transformed your life?
Thank you, Brother Krish, for that question. Well, it continues to be a work in progress in my life. As I said, at the tender age of 16, I started searching for God. I came into contact with Swami at the age of 19. And at that time, having read his teachings, visited Prashanti Nilayam, I gave up eating meat. I never used to smoke or drink, so I gave up eating meat. But more importantly, my life was impacted and changed because now I had come in contact with a guru, my master, somebody who I looked upon as my mother. Because growing up in a broken home, I never felt that motherly love. And when I came into contact with Swami, I saw the love, as he himself has said, of 1,000 mothers. And then at that time, I had a bad temper. I was impatient. I was very sensitive. And so, with practicing his teachings over a period of time, those kinds of transformation began to take place in me through his divine grace, where the anger was becoming less and less, the impatience, and then being too sensitive, affected by other people so very easily. So it is only through practicing his teachings and more importantly by his grace that transformation began to take place. I began now to see what my purpose, those three questions: who am I? Why have I been sent on the face of the earth? What is my purpose? Became much clearer and much more focused, having come into contact with my beloved Guru, my mother, Satya Sai Baba, because he provided the direction that I should go. And what was very important to me as well, and a blessing, was in one interview I actually asked him, I said, Swami, what seva should I do in this life, specifying this incarnation? And he said, you teach the children, help the old people, and visit the hospitals. So I was very clear in my understanding of what he wanted me to practice, the sadhana for this incarnation. In addition to go and speak, and I will be there inside you. So, Brother Krish, it continues to be a work in progress where the transformation is concerned, and it's happening only through His divine grace. So, I feel very humbled and very blessed that He has spelled out in a way exactly what my role and function in this incarnation is. Sairam.
Thank you, Brother Fize. That was very, very moving, very inspiring. And Swami giving you specific instructions as to what he would like you to do. That was good. So my next question to you: from your understanding and practicing Islam, what are some of the similarities between the teachings of Islam and Sai Baba?
Brother Krish, thank you very much for that question. But I must mention, before I go into that answer, when I came back from my first trip in 1981, at that time in the mosque, I was the vice president of the Muslim youth group. I used to lead the namaz or daily prayers on some occasions, and at times I would call the holy call to azan, the call to prayer. And during the holy month of Ramadan one year, they had found out that Brother Fize had gone to India and met this Sai Baba and is now associating partners with Allah, which is something sacrilegious in Islam. When that information reached their ears, because I had, during the holy month of Ramadan, there's a particular night called Laylatul Qadr, where you wake the entire night doing devotion, reading the Quran, and doing zikr or divine remembrance. And in order to pass the time, I took a book of Sai Baba with me, and one of the mosque board members saw it. So they had an emergency meeting. They banned me from leading the namaz. They removed my position as the Muslim youth vice president, and I was banned from calling the azan. Brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers who had grown up in the mosque and learned to respect and have a good family relationship would now pass me straight. Some of my friends say, you are no longer a Muslim, you've converted to some other faith. And one very close brother came to me and he said, Fize, forget this Sai Baba and come and pray to the only true God, Almighty Allah. And I told him, I say, brother, I have prayed to Almighty Allah to show me the truth of who Sai Baba is, and to that allegiance I will remain loyal and steadfast. And after a while, I was excommunicated from the mosque, because in my going, it would cause animosity and comments to be made that were not nice. I felt very pained and very hurt. And my mother used to go to the mosque as well, and she was also a victim of this kind of behavior. So after a while, I stopped going to the mosque, but would normally drop my mother to the mosque and pick her back up when the worship was completed. So those were some of the things that I had to go through as a result of my belief in Sri Satya Sai Baba. So coming back to your question, Brother Krish, some of the similarities of the teachings of Sai Baba and that of Islam. The core message of Islam lies in two teachings. One, surrendering to the almighty will of Allah as contained in the teachings of the Quran. And secondly, believing in the oneness of Allah. Because the first declaration of faith says, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulallah. There is no God but Allah, and the Holy Prophet Muhammad is his messenger. But if I should quote from the Quran and what Swami has said about oneness, the Quran says, God alone is one, La ilaha illallah. To think there is something apart from Allah is the mark of an unbeliever who joins gods to God. That's a verse from the Quran. To whichever name you call upon him, to him belongs the most beautiful names. And my Lord, you are the first, nothing is before you. You are the last, nothing is after you. You are the outward, nothing is over you. You are the inward, nothing is inside of you. Help me to pay my debt and keep poverty from me. That came from one of the hadith or authentic sayings. But this is what Satya Sai Baba says on the same oneness. Swami says in Islam, the expression salam is used as a form of greeting. Sa in this term signifies the combined expression of salaokam, samipyam, and sayujam, seeing the divine, being near the divine, and merging in the divine. When these three expressions are combined and merged into one, La signifying merger, you have Salam, the merging of many in the one. A talk given on by Satya Sai Baba, 25th December 1991. And then in Satya Sai Speaks, Swami says, Islam, directed attention to the one in the many, the unity in diversity, and led people to the reality named God. So, similarities between the teachings of Islam and the teaching of Sai. When it comes to surrender, our Lord has given, Bhagwan has given so many beautiful discourses that we must surrender our egotistic will to the will of God to allow them to be aligned with one another. In Islam, we are taught to surrender our will to the will of Almighty Allah. What is very interesting to Brother Krishna, the 5 cardinal principles of Islam. The first one is declaration of faith, which is called Shahada, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. The next 4 pillars, if you look at the way that they are constructed, they fit nicely into some of Sai Baba's teachings. The next 4 pillars show us how to realize the unity of divinity. The salah or prayer 5 times a day builds self-confidence. The fasting helps us to develop self-satisfaction. The zakat or charity, giving to the poor and the needy, represents self-sacrifice. And going to the Hajj, that holy pilgrimage, allows us the opportunity to realize the self-realization. And again, if you look at the 5 cardinal principles of Islam, as we said, which is declaration of faith, zakat or charity, prayers 5 times daily, fasting, which is going on now, the holy month of Ramadan, and the pilgrimage to Hajj, you will see that closely they are aligned to 5 values, the 5 human values. Truth, because the declaration of faith, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, is the truth. Then when you perform the 5 daily namaz, it brings a sense of peace and quietness, divine communion with the divine. When we do fasting, we are fasting about and against not hurting or ill speaking or harming anyone in thought, word, and deed. That's non-violence. And then zakat, giving alms to the needy and the poor, is right action. And then when you visit that holy pilgrimage, it represents the love of Almighty Allah manifesting itself in that pilgrimage. And so in the 5 cardinal principles, you can see the 5 values of Satya Sai Baba aligned with them. In fact, Satya Sai Baba once said, Islam, ISLAM, means I shall love all mankind. And Brother Krish, it is very noteworthy to note that in 1977, when Sai Baba built the mosque for the Muslims who had to trek many, many miles in the blistering heat, when that mosque was being inaugurated, he invited the village. He materialized pendants with Arabic inscriptions, no forms, and presented it to the mosque board members. And then Swami himself said, and I would really recommend devotees who are looking at this to go back and read this message of Sai Baba in 1977, delivered on the opening of the mosque. He said the Holy Quran was revealed directly from God to man, as the Vedas were revealed directly from God to man. And that the tenets and teachings in the Holy Quran, if practiced with sincerity and love, will allow one to gain self-realization. Swami also said, no religion exhorts violence. All propagate love for God and service to humanity. Today, you can hear the holy call of the Muslims reverberating through the village of Puttaparthi in those 5 daily namaz, testifying to the oneness of Almighty Allah, the oneness of the teachings of Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba, and how he has come for the whole of humanity. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, that was really wonderful, Fize. And the mosque that you referred to in Puttaparthi, I don't know if you recall, when we went to Puttaparthi in 2015, we went to the mosque. Yeah, and I remember you took a picture in front of the mosque. Yes, I remember that. Very, very beautiful sharing and the comparison, its similarities. So wonderful. Brother Fize, What does Sai Baba mean to you?
Brother Krish, when I first came into contact with Sri Satya Sai Baba, the first relationship that naturally emanated from my heart was that he is my mother. Because as stated before, I never grew up with that motherly love because of having come from a broken home. And when I experienced the love of Mother Sai, it was a love I've never felt before, more than the love of 1,000 mothers that he himself has said. And now it has gone through different stages, but initially, that was the initial relationship I had with him. So Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba is my mother, my guru, my master, my friend, my everything. In fact, all that I am and ever hope to be is as a result of him. Because in 1983, in that interview in October, he said it was I who saved you from that accident. So it is about living my life and doing whatever little I can to serve him, to love him, and to become aware now of this divinity within. Because when the physical form was no longer there, I suffered intolerably, like many of us. But I had to go back and relearn and unlearn, because he himself had said, do not ever mistake me for this body. So ironically, in the beginning, I had to reconcile the formless aspect of Allah with the form of Sai Baba. And now that he has transitioned into the formless, I now have to reconcile to go back to the formless. And this has been a great, great blessing now, because it has allowed for introspection within, a deeper yearning, a greater concentration and focus to find the Sai within me so that I can see the Sai without everywhere. And that is his message. I am God, but you are God also. The only difference is I know that I am God, whereas you do not. So my work in progress continues to be that, to awaken that inherent divinity within so that I can experience and see it outside. So Brother Krish, he is my everything, my guide, my guru, my mother, my master. Without him, as he himself has said, without him we are zeros, and with him we become heroes. Sai Ram.
Very, very wonderful. Without him, we are zero. With him, we become heroes. Very wonderful. Very wonderful. My next question, Brother Fize. Muslims all over the world are observing the holy month of Ramadan. Can you explain a little on the significance of this tenet in Islam?
Well, as stated before, there are 5 cardinal principles of Islam, Brother Krish. And it is really amazing, before I answer that question, during this month of April, Brother Krish, I'm sure you would have noticed the unity of faith, the Sarvadharma effect is taking place. It's
Yes.
been an example in this month of April because we have the Lenten season. We've just celebrated Navaratri and the birthday of Shri Ram. We have the holy month of Ramadan coming up. We've just celebrated Hanuman Jayanti, which
Hanuman.
is in fact, this interview is being done on Hanuman Jayanti today in Trinidad.
Yes. Yes.
And then on the 24th, we have the Aradhana Mahotsava, the Mahasamadhi of the Avatar of the Age. So this month of April is such a blessed month, reflecting that Sarva Dharma awareness that God is one. So if I should explain very briefly this holy month of Ramadan, Ramadan is the name of the month designated for fasting by Muslims. And over a period of 30 days, Muslims are supposed to engage in the fast from the break of dawn to the time the sun sets, once they're in good health. They are supposed to abstain from food and water In our Trinidad and Tobago, that could be a period of about 14 hours. Because of the time zones, it may be different in different parts of the world. And what are the benefits of fasting besides the body and the digestive organs getting a well-deserved rest? The core inner lesson of fasting is to fast away from all that is not pleasing to Almighty Allah. So therefore, we have to ensure our thoughts, our words, our deeds are pleasing to Almighty Allah. So we should not be criticizing, we should not be getting vexed or angry, we should not be ill speaking others behind their back. In addition, when the rich and the poor, the educated and the uneducated, they have to willfully subject themselves to this fast. The rich person who is accustomed to eating 3 and more meals per day now has to feel the pangs of hunger. And hopefully, he will understand and feel what the beggar feels on the street when he doesn't have a meal for a day or two. And then he should be moved or encouraged to use his wealth to alleviate the poor and suffering in the community. But the main core purpose of the fast is to become near and dear to Almighty Allah during that 30-day period of fasting. And during that period, people frequent the mosque and intensify their prayers and their devotion to Almighty Allah. They do alms, they read the Holy Quran, they increase their prayers. And so to win the grace of Almighty Allah, it is said that during the holy month of Ramadan, the gates of hell are closed and the gates of heaven are open. So the purpose of the fasting is to shatter that ego through service, through prayer, through zikr, and to become near and dear to Almighty Allah. And this period will end for a period of 30 days. And the day that they celebrate as Eidul Fitr marks the end of the day of the month of fasting. So Muslims are not supposed to fast on that day. On that day, it is a day of thanksgiving to Almighty Allah for giving them the courage and inner strength to go through the fast, the complete fast. So Muslims all over the world invite their non-Muslim brothers and sisters to partake in that joy of gratitude, that joy of bliss, of connecting with Almighty Allah. And they want to share that joy with all their non-Muslim brothers and sisters in the community. Sairam.
Sairam, Brother Fize. That was wonderful. I like how you compare what is happening right now in the world with the various auspicious periods of days with the Sarva Dharma. Very, very beautiful. And the fasting, how the rich will feel the pangs of hunger of the poor. What advice would you give to the general public to create a better society, a more value-based society?
Brother Krishna, when we look around in the society today, we will see so much what we may call apparent suffering and misery and pain. We will see families fighting against each other, nations against each other. There's so much of greed for lust and power and position and money. But to answer this question, if you go back into the teachings of Satya Sai Baba, you will see in 1986 when we attended the first EHV conference, Sai Baba told us in a divine discourse, the best way to teach human values is to live it. So he says, you cannot change the world, but you can change yourself. When a devotee asked him, Swami, what can I do to change the world? He said, forget the world and change yourself. So to really answer that question, what advice? We need to become examples of Swami's love and light. And as Baba says, forget the good that you have done to others, forget the harm others have done to you. Consider the faults in others no matter how big, to be less significant and small, and consider the faults in you no matter how small to be huge, and repent and transform yourself. So we who want to be called devotees of Bhagwan, to be practitioners of his teachings, we have to be heroes at putting his teachings into practice. And as they say today, we have to walk the talk, be the change, be a good example of his teachings. And I know for many of us it's a work in progress, but the more that we can become that light, that is how that light can shine on others to inspire them to also do the same. And we must never feel that whatever we are doing is small and insignificant. Because if you take the tiniest pebble and drop it in a cup of water, you're going to get the tiniest of ripples. And if you take that tiny ripple and multiply it by 6 or 7 or 8 billion souls, you can have waves of transformation flooding the entire world. So we should take ownership and responsibility for our space to be the best father, the best worker, the best devotee in every aspect. And in that way, we can contribute to make the world a better place. And I must say to Brother Krish that in addition to being a good example, I remember Swami saying to his students, he says, all that I want from you when you leave this institution is to have a good name and a good character. Because that is what we will take into the next life. So if we practice with this kind of attitude, we can truly make a difference to create a better society. Sai Ram.
Thank you, Brother Fize. That was really wonderful. Basically, you're saying be the change you want to see in the world. Really wonderful. Brother Fize, you have been an SSC teacher, Bal Vikas teacher for more than 30 years. Share with us how that experience has impacted and transformed your life.
Brother Krish, thank you very much for that question. As stated before in an interview that I had with my beloved Mother Sai, I asked him what kind of seva should I do. And what the very first thing he said is teach the children. When Swami gave that particular instruction, there are basically 5 teaching methods in awakening human values in children: silent sitting, devotional singing, prayers, storytelling, group activity. And I never knew anything about these. I didn't know any mantras, any songs, any teachings, etc. So this was a real blessing for me when Sai Baba told me, teach the children. I now had to go through a period of learning and training and educating myself to be a good teacher, because as he himself has said, to be a good SSC teacher, you must have a good character. You must lead by example. You must live the life. But even more so, I had to familiarize myself with those 5 teaching methods. So it is like going back to study now to gain all the knowledge, the experience, the skills of being a good teacher. But most importantly, living the values, practicing the values, and being a good example for those children. And I remember in Trinidad, when I started teaching the classes as per Baba's instructions, we had a shortage of Balvikas gurus. And so I used to teach 3 classes per week, one on a Saturday, Sunday, and Tuesday, because there was a shortage of gurus in the country. But the joy and the happiness, to me, it is one of the greatest seva, because as Swami said, Bal Vikas Gurus, SSC teachers are the only permanent students. And he once said an SSC teacher or Bal Vikas Guru need not do any other seva. This is a 24/7 seva. It is not like going to school and teaching mathematics and then coming home and closing the book. No, being an SSC teacher, you have to be a role model. You always have to be improving your teaching methods. You always have to be looking at your life to ensure that you are setting a good example for your children. So it took a lot of commitment and dedication. And this particular seva really impacted and transformed my life to give my very best to Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba. And I remember one particular class, Brother Krish, that we had over 50 children. And that was a class that taught me so much of values. Because in sharing and being an SSC teacher, you learn so much or as much from the children as the children learn from you. So it was a very learning experience. And I remember in one particular class, there was this one student. We had a discussion about meat eating, and he went home and told his mother, he said, "Ma, from today on, I'm not eating meat." The parents were very furious that they had to cook separately for him. The next morning, they saw him into the prayer room saying prayers before going to school. And after a while, the parents stopped eating meat. The parents joined them in the prayer room, and those parents became part of the center. The Bal Vikas, that particular class, was so amazing that we did something called Children Satsang, where an idea came that if we are going to celebrate the birthday of a child, we will have a Bal Vikas Satsang where the children conduct the entire satsang from Om right down to Arti. So they will sing the devotional songs, do the silent sitting, the message, the vote of thanks, the Arti. And I could remember the very first day we did this satsang in the center, the elders sat at the back of the class and watched and observed how the children conducted this satsang. And when we finished, their mouths were hung open. They were so amazed and inspired at what the children were able to do at Bal Vikas level. And this came through the effort of the children and the commitment of the Bal Vikas gurus. So much so that those children never wanted to take holidays. When it was holidays, they said, no, sir, we want to come to Bal Vikas, because we made the class so interesting, so humorous, and worth coming to. It had such an impact on the family that whenever and wherever we did that children's satsang in a village, the children would invite their friends and their parents would bring them to the satsang. And the parents were so inspired by the behavior and conduct of the Bal Vikas children that they were encouraged now to send their children to the class. So little by little, there was transformation taking place in the society through the SSC classes. And after a while, believe it or not, the parents who used to drop their children and then go to the market or go somewhere and pick up back their children, after a while, we started a parents class. So side by side with the children, we had a parents class, and they would talk about things pertaining to parenting, the challenges of parenting. And they would have moderators who would take different roles every week. And all in all, Brother Krish, the old saying, the family that prays together stays together. So the entire center, through the parents and the children, became closer. And without taking too much time, one of the most powerful activities that we did in that Bal Vikas class was the family satsang. And every single week, families would get together and do that family satsang. And I remember in our home too here with Vani and Vana, when they were small, every Sunday for 45 minutes, we had made a date with God, with Sai, that we would have this family satsang. Each child was given a responsibility to prepare the altar, pick the flowers. Each child was given the opportunity to say a value-based message. And so our satsang, our family satsang, would begin with 3 ohms, 3 prayers, a Muslim prayer, a Hindu prayer, and a Christian prayer. We would have devotional songs from all the faiths, a short period of silent sitting, and then one of the children will give a value-based message for 3 to 5 minutes. Then we will have Arti, Vibhuti, and closing prayers, where the children will touch the feet of the parents. But most importantly, after that, we used to have what you call a parliamentary discussion, where my wife would make a pot of tea and some cake, and we would all come and have a discussion in the living room of the home, where we valued what the children had to say. And I remember my biggest daughter, Amrita, telling me one day, she said, "Daddy, you are not a good role model as a Bal Vikas guru." And I said, "Why, Amrita?" She said, "You were rushing to go Bal Vikas and you broke the light. You still continued when the light was red." And then I said, "I am so sorry, Amrita. Dada will never do that again." And so we had that kind of discussion in the home. And that particular activity, Brother Krish, every month the family would make sandwiches and the children will go with their own hands and hand it out to those who are needy and poor. So we played together, we prayed together, we did seva together. The family that prays together stays together. And this, with other families in that particular class, became a stronger unit. And as Baba says, if there is righteousness in the heart, there will be beauty in the character. If there's beauty in the character, there will be harmony in the home. If there's harmony in the home, there will be order in the nation. When there's order in the nation, there will be peace in the world. And Brother Krish, I must share this with our viewing audience. Bal Vikas and SSE to me is the most important activity in the Satya Sai organization. Why? Because it deals with molding the young minds to become ideal citizens of tomorrow. And Swami himself has said 75% of his time was spent with the younger ones. We should take a cue from the avatar's life. And as I said earlier, my 2 daughters are in Canada. One day, my eldest daughter, Amrita Vani, sends me a picture of 400 tins of food. So I said, "Amrita, what is this picture about?" She said, "Dad, for Halloween, I took some friends and instead of collecting chocolates and sweets, we collected tins of food and they gave it to a soup kitchen in Waterloo in the university, close to the university where she went to." And I said, "Oh my God," it brought tears to my eyes. But the foundation of this, Brother Krish, came from Bal Vikas and doing seva in the home. My second daughter, Shivana, teaches English to the immigrants, those who cannot speak. And they volunteer and give up their time now, even in the busiest times of their life. But the foundation of those human values came from SSE classes at a very tender age. So all in all, the single most important activity that has contributed to my transformation in this incarnation is being an SSE teacher. And I thank my beloved Bhagwan for the opportunity to serve him in this respect. And Brother Krish, before I bring this interview to an end, I would like very much to sing a very simple Islamic song, and one that many of us may know, but is one that we incorporate into our bhajan session in Trinidad and Tobago. And I'll just sing a couple of lines. And the words are La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulallah, which simply means there's nothing but Allah and the Holy Prophet Muhammad is his messenger. Subhanallah, glory be to God. La ilaha illallah La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. Subhanallah, 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 La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. Subhanallah, 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 Subhanallah. La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. May Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba continue to bless and guide each and every one of us. I thank Swami for the opportunity to share and receive his love. I thank the Sri Satya Sai Global Council for giving the opportunity to share this message. And may we all continue to be loving instruments in his divine mission. Jai Sai Ram.
Thank you, Brother Fize. That was very, very inspiring, very moving, and you can really sing well. The Sri Satya Sai Global Council of Trinidad and Tobago expresses its gratitude for taking the time to share your personal journey to Mother Sai. May Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba continue to bless and guide you, and may you continue to be a loving instrument in his divine message. Thank you very much, Brother Sai, Brother Fize, Sai Ram. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, Brother Krish, and thank you once again for this divine opportunity. May Swami continue to bless and guide us all. Jai Sai Ram.
Jai Sai.